Hey, thanks for joining me. So I looked at Ultimate X-Men #1 just recently, and I kind of originally intended to do this entire book. It's a collection of the first three, but it was going long. But, I didn't want to wait too long to kind of get through this beginning, opening kind of series on the Ultimate X-Men. I was basically saying that the Ultimates line, for those of us who were there, it was pretty damn successful. It was pretty exciting, and it kind of breathed new life into Marvel Comics, whether you want to believe it or not. I mean, I was there in real time, and this stuff was made in the early 2000s. This was new, exciting stuff. Ultimately, it some of them were brilliant and some of them were not. And I find that X-Men, at best, was mid-level, at best. It started out interesting enough, but it's just kind of the way that everything ultimately pays off in the end. The thing that became pretty apparent is that these are all like skinwalkers. They're all like, they look like the X-Men. They have the powers. They say similar things. But these are all soulless, mean-spirited fucking pieces of shit. All of these characters, as compared to the heart and soul that was injected into the Claremont era X-Men. And again, they were trying to do something, this is the early 2000s, it's edgy and blah, 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 blah. I get why they did it, and I'm looking at it after the fact. I'm just like, no, I don't really want to revisit these characters. But it's pretty well told. Like, the story structure works pretty well. That one of the biggest problems, someone pointed this out in one of the comments on issue 1 that I forgot to bring up, but I completely agree with. One of them said that one of their biggest problems with the Ultimate X-Men line is that they blew through like decades of stories in just a couple of issues. It's just instantly all these things that took a long time to build up to, years, decades even, were just suddenly done in 10 or 20 or 30 issues. They just blow through so much stuff so fast. So the first issue starts out with like a gathering of all these mutants. And that's kind of a typical, like, it's an X-Men thing. Like, we got to get the mutants together. But it felt so fast. All these characters who are brand new to each other, they barely know their powers. They don't know how to control them often. And they're just teenagers. They're like 16 or 17 years old, at least a good bunch of them. I don't know why there's this thing about having a team of heroes that's a bunch of teenagers. I hear them talk about all the time, they being articles, creators, people behind the comics. Like, comics are read by kids, so they'll only identify with kids. Bull fucking shit. That's not 100%. I don't believe that for a second. I never identified with fucking children in comics. I thought the adults were awesome. I wanted to be the grown-up guys. It's kind of like being a kid and watching Star Wars. I didn't want to be Luke Skywalker, the little whiny little bitch, the farm boy. I wanted to be Han Solo. I wanted to be the cool, suave pirate with the fucking badass old-school hot rod and his dog riding around making money, going to bars, drinking beer. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a kid. And it's kind of the same thing with comics. I don't identify as a kid with kids in comics. And when I get older, it's just even more so. But again, it's kind of the premise. Like, they're youthful. They have to be young. But do they have to be? It's an approach that can work if it's done right. But this edgelord bullshit X-Men comic, all the team gets together. They have to go rescue a new mutant out there that they discovered is running around. His name is Bobby Drake. It's Iceman. And of course, the Sentinels show up and start blowing things away. So now this new team of characters who barely know how to use their powers has to fight the Sentinels. And Storm, she uses her powers on a large scale for the first time, and she takes out 3 Sentinels, but the exertion knocks her ass out. So she's down, but Beast is there being a badass. They're taking out Sentinels. Cyclops, with his eye blast, takes them out. They're doing pretty well, all things considered. Iceman finally grows a set of ice nuts and, gets to use his powers for the first time. And they're like, oh, your mutant powers are ice and frozen things. Your name is Iceman. Okay. And of course, as this team of mutants, the X-Men, save all the humans are still pissed off because mutants are scum and they want them dead. Then we cut back to Magneto. He's observing all of this stuff going on. And his son Quicksilver is saying, just point me at the X-Men. I'll kill Professor X in a blink of an eye. And Magneto's like, dude, Charles Xavier would see you coming a mile away and he'd shut your brain down in an instant. Well, I need a dedicated assassin who knows what he's doing. So get me Wolverine. Tell him he's got a new mission. So it's implying that Wolverine, for some reason, is working with or for Magneto. I'm like, okay, sure. Of course Wolverine's going to have to be the character with the biggest, weirdest, most unconventional story arc, because Wolverine is the most popular character of the X-Men. Like, of course he is. So I was like, he works for the bad guys? I guess it makes sense. Narratively, the character in this alternate universe, sure. But he's going to have to, like, have a change of heart and become, the heart and soul of the X-Men, right? Like, you can't have Wolverine just be a bad guy. So, issue 2 starts out with Wolverine, and I got to say, they do this design thing with Wolverine. Then I'm like, oh, you guys, you are dating this thing. It's so bad. So Wolverine, he's traveling. What does this say? Immigration missing your mutant gene is one thing, but how does a guy with an adamantium skeleton avoid setting off every metal detector in the building? He's like, three little words, bub. I'm a professional. Which, okay. I mean, sure. But Wolverine, it's not extremely visible here, but he's got like a little bullshit, I don't know what the term is, but a little pointy little chin beard. It looks so stupid. Look at this crappy Joe Quesada drawing on the cover. See his little pointy chin beard thing? Who comes up with that bullshit? I should make sure to mention, artist is Adam Kubert with inks by Art T-Bear. Adam Kubert does a great job. I got to give him full credit for that. But yeah, Wolverine with his adamantium skeleton gets through metal detectors, no problem. How? Why? Because he's a professional. He's just so fucking cool. Okay. Well, as he's walking out, there's a bunch of soldiers lined up with their guns trained on him. And the idea is that he doesn't know that they're there. Humans are extremely suspicious of mutants. Wolverine stops. He senses something, and then he just gets riddled with bullets. These soldiers just take him down, killing the human there. The guy's like, hold your fire, boys. We got him. Wolverine's down. Okay. So now we get a big double-page spread. Good shot. Looks like it's done with maybe... I'm like, is this like a charcoal kind of drawing? But the Statue of Liberty, and of course the X-Men, this is another one of those, like, just the nerd in me. I kind of am a minor kind of nerd about airplanes. I kind of know a bit about, like, for example, old World War II airplanes, the P-51, the Mustang, the Thunderbolt, the F-4 Corsair, all those type of shits. And then modern, like the major airplanes. You got the Tomcats, the Hornets, the Vipers, the Eagles, the Raptors, all that shit. And then, of course, the X-Men always flew around in the SR-71 Blackbird, which is a bad motherfucker jet. But now in this version, they've got the X-Men rocketing around in a B-2 Spirit, which this super shouldn't fucking matter. But I'm like, this thing is not meant for speed. It's supposed to be an invisible bomber, but it's an X-Men jet. They've hyped it up with technology and given it warp drive or some bullshit. It does look cool, those angles on it. I get that they're trying to, like, well, we don't want to do the Blackbird. We don't want to do the SR-71 or some derivative of that. Again, who fucking cares? Like, Rob, stop. Who cares about the jet? It looks pretty cool, but I'm like, that is not meant for speed. It's a bomber. It doesn't have a bay inside it to carry a bunch of people, but neither did the Blackbird. Who cares, Rob? Shut up about the jet. No one gives a shit. But yeah, Millar, Kubert, T-Bear, same creative team. And then, again, I know this doesn't matter, but I'm like, how do 16-year-old teenage girls know how to fly a hyper super advanced jet? Well, they're mutants, and Professor X put the knowledge in her. And like... the part of me this is like technology and flying machines and being a pilot. You know, flying aircraft is a major undertaking, and they just make fucking anybody able to do it. Again, it's a comic book, Rob, it's a comic book. These are superheroes. None of this is real. None of them have powers. It's just a fucking jet. Pull your head out of your own fat, stupid ass and just enjoy the comic. Okay, right. Got you. She's, wait, were they talking? I was so wrapped up in the fucking jet. Okay, no. But Jean Grey, she said, do you really need to check the cloaking device while we're doing 300 miles an hour? There are other ways to impress a girl, you know. And so the Beast, he's outside of the jet. Is he outside of it over here? Oh, no, he actually is. Beast is right there on the outside of the jet. So Beast is out there. He's like, hey, how often does a guy get to tinker with $1 billion piece of hardware like the Blackbird? I've spent my whole life fantasizing about a budget that could keep up with my ideas. Just wait to see the plans I've got for that training room in the school basement. So it's letting us know that Beast is brilliant, but he's new to the team. He just joined in the last issue, and he's out there working on the jet because it needs work done on it while they're going 300 miles an hour. How Beast doesn't get flung off of it, who's to say? Who cares? It's a comic book, Rob. It's just a comic book. It doesn't matter. Move on, Rob. Right. But, yeah, they're talking, and Beast says, what's the story with you and Cyclops anyway? Storm reckons she heard Cyclops sneaking into your room the other night. And Jean Grey says, well, I guess she needs to get her ears tested. Poor Scott spent the last year and a half trying to pluck up the courage to ask me out to a movie. Like they're implying that they're sneaking into each other's rooms. They're 16 and 17 years old. I know that 16 and 17-year-olds do get together and fuck around. I get it. But it's a comic book, Rob. There's Iceman. Remember that we recruited him in the last issue, and they thought that the cool version of Iceman would be to put a bandana on his head and on the left bicep of his upper arm. A bandana on both. Is that cool? Is there such a thing as a bandana tied around your upper arm? Was that ever a thing? Like, I'm an old cantankerous man these days, and I'm not cool, but I was also never cool when I was younger, so I don't know shit. But in the early 2000s, is that a thing? It's so dumb. But the X-Men, you know, they're coming back. They're flying their $1 billion B-2 Spirit, landing it at the mansion, and I guess Beast is saying, you mean the guy who can lobotomize a sentinel single-handedly fumble his lines in the presence of a skinny little 17-year-old redhead? And she's saying, oh, and you're the Casanova all of a sudden? She says, how could a beautiful uptown girl like Storm ever love a man who butters his toast with his feet in the morning? If only she'd ask to do washing up duty with me instead of that big tractor-loving communist colossus. And he's like, haha, very funny. He says, isn't there some kind of house rule against the school psychic eavesdropping on private thoughts? And Jean Grey says, you don't need to peek inside someone's head to see their tongue hanging out, Henry. So, you know, they're having all this, like, interpersonal drama, and I get it. We have to understand who likes who and what their motivations are. It's fine. But we get going. Professor X, you know, he's contacting students. Sorry to interrupt any of the decadent fantasies I'm getting feedback on here, but Cerebro just located another mutant in the New York area. Your presence is required. Let's go. So they get into the room, meeting up with Professor X. It's like, well, who'd you meet up with? Is it Magneto? Do you think he's finally figured out where you set up your operation? Professor X says, unlikely, considering this gentleman was just captured by the authorities, Colossus. Magneto would have leveled half the city before they managed to bring him down. Basically, they're understanding that the humans have captured Wolverine. That's who the new mutant is that they're checking out. And Professor X says, it's hard to tell. I'm afraid there are so many implants in his head. It's impossible to be sure. But I suspect we're dealing with Wolverine here, Cyclops. And he's like, what? Jean Grey's like, tell us you're jerking our chain, Professor. So it is interesting that some of these people know who or what Wolverine is. That's an interesting idea. Storm doesn't know. She's like, would somebody mind explaining to us newbies who Wolverine actually is so we can all pee in our pants too? That's kind of a funny line. And Cyclops says, Wolverine is the most dangerous killer in the world, Storm. The only proof he even exists is a blurred picture taken during the Gulf War. All we know about him is that he was part of some black ops unit in the days when the Pentagon just exploited mutants as opposed to routinely executing us. Rumor has it he escaped 18 months ago, and nobody's seen him since. I guess this means his former masters have finally caught up with him. So they're kind of implying that Wolverine doesn't have like a... I mean, I guess he could still have a huge mysterious background and past that we don't know about. But, you know, they're like, he worked for the government. Only 18 months ago has he escaped them. So it's kind of like, where's he at? Where's he been? What's he doing? Professor X says, this is going to be a dangerous operation. Iceman, you've only been with us for a couple of weeks, so nobody's going to hold it against you if you'd prefer to sit this out. So they're also saying at least there's been some time. From the last issue, from issue 1 to issue 2, it's been a couple of weeks. Okay, so they at least have had some time to bond. But Iceman's like, no way, you guys saved my ass from a Sentinel. I'm here to join the team. And they're like, good answer, Iceman, let's rock and roll. So these fucking underage children who don't know anything, and they can't possibly be dangerous trained combatants. They just have dangerous powers. Well, they're going to go after the world's most deadly assassin. Cut to the convoy that's transporting Wolverine. Wolverine wakes up, and there's a guy named Wraith. That's a guy from the original Wolverine storyline, right? Wraith? Right? I don't know if he looks like this. I don't know what's going on. But he's like, yep, that's right, soldier. Welcome back to Weapon X. So Wolverine jumps up and slashes at him. And they're like, yeah, we have adamantium bars. So, you know, we can't have you busting through. So, you know, calm down. And so this Wraith guy takes one of the rifles from one of the soldiers there, you know, checks to make sure it's loaded, and then shoots Wolverine through the cage he's a caged animal. He can't run. And so he just unloads a magazine into Wolverine just to torture him. So I think this is supposed to create a sense of sympathy with the reader to show that Wolverine's trapped and these shitball asshole humans, they know they can't kill him. Not that they're trying to, but they can't kill him because Wolverine's got that healing factor, but boy, does it hurt. So it's just torture. And we're supposed to have sympathy for this Wolverine. Now, of course, we like Wolverine, but this version of him to start, if I remember correctly, Wolverine in the Ultimate Universe eventually becomes kind of like a character we kind of like, sorta. But to start off, I'm not a huge fan of him, but we're supposed to be having sympathy because they just shoot at him. Yeah, the guy says you could shoot him, stab him, crack his head open with an iron bar. His mutant healing ability means that he could always piece himself back together. You could douse him with gasoline and light him up, and he'd still be fine. But Wolverine starts to mouth off. He's like, you dirty son of a bitch. And he's like, watch your mouth, mutie. And they just shoot him again. And the other soldiers kind of don't necessarily like what they're seeing, but one of them had a shocked look on his face, but then Wraith hands the gun back to the other soldiers and says, have as much fun as you'd like to have with them, boys. We're wiping his mind clean once we get back to base, so he ain't going to remember any of the names or faces anyway. So they all just start shooting Wolverine. It's pretty, horrific. If they dared to have the balls to put this in one of the X-Men movies with a Wolverine that we're sympathetic to, that's pretty messed up, but it's also pretty violent, and Disney doesn't have the balls to do that. But they're torturing Wolverine, and the X-Men need to save him. So as the convoy's heading down the road, Soldier looks, and there is an admittedly pretty epic shot of the current X-Men team. Iceman, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Storm, Colossus, Beast, and the giant B-2 Spirit jet just sitting right down in front of him, which I guess is silent as well. No one heard a giant jet landing. No one saw a giant jet landing. It's a comic book, Rob. It's okay. This doesn't have to be real. The backlighting is pretty epic. You know, it's a pretty good shot, being honest. And Cyclops says, blow them away, Storm. So she uses her powers, creates a tornado, whatever, blows them off the ground. Pretty damn good looking stuff there. Pretty powerful. So then the X-Men get in there and start just ripping things apart, getting into the machines, the trucks, trying to find the mutant. They're taking out the soldiers. Of course, they're being careful to not kill him. They find Wolverine locked in the cell, and Colossus is like, hey, I'll just open up these bars so you can get out. And Wolverine's like, these aren't steel bars, you dummy. It's adamantium. So the X-Men are getting in there. They're trying to figure out a way to get Wolverine out of the cage. Beast gets some digital device hooked up to just actuate the cage motors, just to open it up. And the instant that the cage pops open, like in the blink of an eye, boom, Wolverine takes off, he's running, and they're like, wait, hold on a minute, man, we're here to save you. You're supposed to like be grateful and talk to us and maybe come with us. Wolverine finds a motorcycle somewhere. He's instantly on the motorcycle and taking off. He's like a scared rabid animal that's just taking off at the first sign of freedom that he can get, which makes sense. So he takes off, and they're like, well, don't just stand there catching flies in your mouth. Get after him. That's actually some dialogue that Cyclops says there. So I guess they, one of the soldiers, there's a truck that's kind of got away, I guess. They're like, come on, doesn't this thing go any faster? They're like, I've got it floored. We just got to go quicker. Like these team of mutants, they don't know who the X-Men are, but this team of mutants are here. We got to get. And then as they look down the road, they're like, oh, wait, there's another person standing in the middle of the road. Who's this guy? They're like, oh, shit, who's this? I guess that's supposed to be, is that Wolverine? No. It doesn't look like him. I don't know how I missed this point of like who the hell that is. But it doesn't look like Wolverine. So I'm missing a story point. I don't know if that's supposed to be him or not. I mean, it's a motorcycle, but that's not his hair or his hair color. Anyway, the Jeep goes running off the mountain, crashes into a tree, sends both soldiers through the windshield into the snow. So very much like the original X-Men movie. I feel like there's some maybe potentially intentional echoes. Like, remember when Wolverine was getting attacked by Sabretooth and in the snowy road, and then Storm and Cyclops showed up? You know, that's kind of that scene there. And then a truck smashing into a tree, sending people flying through the windshield in the snow. That's here. But the guys are beat up. They got glass in their skulls. Wolverine's there with his claws out. He's going to kill him, and the X-Men show up. They're like, don't kill him. I can't imagine what you've been put through, the years of torture, but you can't just kill people. And Wolverine says, do I look like the kind of guy who worries about what the public thinks about me? Like, Wolverine's like, I'm going to kill this guy. I don't give a shit. And Jean Grey, they got these little balls of light, which I think is supposed to be indicating her, like, ramping up her mental powers. She says, you've had a hard enough day, big man. Don't make me hurt you. Wolverine says, and how do you propose to do that, gorgeous? Hit me with the high heel, smack me in the face with your Barbie purse? This also brings up kind of a potential future problematic story point. She's 17. We all remember how Wolverine's super in love with Jean Grey, and he even refers to her as gorgeous. Now, you all know my opinion on this type of stuff with underage shit. It's really creepy, and they're not necessarily leaning into anything yet. I honestly don't remember if Wolverine in this universe ends up having a big crush on Jean Grey the way that he did in the original comics, but they were all fucking adults. But yeah, I've also, to be fair, we've all seen girls that we're like, you can't necessarily determine their age because they look potentially older than they are. You're like, oh shit, all right, that person is super young. You don't know. But all that weirdness aside, Wolverine's a old, grown ass man, and I just wonder if they're going to lean into he gets a crush on Jean Grey when she's a fucking underage kid. But yeah, Jean Grey uses her powers to zip Wolverine off to the side, smack him into a tree, knocks his ass out, and they're like, all right, he's unconscious, and the guy's glad that his life was saved, and they, tell him he's a fucking piece of garbage, and they take off and they leave. Back with, we're in the Savage Land with Magneto. He's talking some evil stuff. He's like, Toad is here. You've got Quicksilver, probably Scarlet Witch. Magneto's saying the Shadow World's most highly trained assassin rings his doorbell, and Charles Xavier isn't supposed to be suspicious. Credit him with some intelligence. A little sleight of hand, and our dear Charles actually sought out the man I sent to kill him, leaving us the chance to concentrate on more pressing matters. So Magneto thinks, and he's probably correct, that he's like set this up where, the most deadly assassin in the world just shows up at his door and knocks. Professor X is going to be kind of suspicious. But when you manipulate the situation to where he's being tortured and captured and the X-Men rescue him, they'll just gladly bring him into their midst. Meanwhile, Magneto's like, we're looking at the White House. We're looking at control of the planet. We're going to take things over. So now it jumps to issue 3, because, again, this is a collected edition. It doesn't show, covers. Starts out, new issue, Sentinels just flying over New York City. I do think this visual is pretty interesting, where they're flying and they got this, like, chest lights, like, scanning down in the city, looking for mutants. And then we're just kind of getting into, the X-Men are out in the world, and, mutants are considered terrorists. Sentinels are searching for mutants. It's just scary. There's things written on the walls like the only good mutant is a dead mutant and die mutie scum. Like the world is against them. And they're talking about, their situation and how are they supposed to live now that they're all suspected terrorists, and what's it like being in a school. It's a difficult situation. What are we going to do? Colossus is saying the only one I haven't really warmed up to yet is Wolverine. And Storm says, God, I loathe Wolverine. Have you seen the way he checks everyone out with those mean little eyes? It's like he's sizing us up all for coffins. And Colossus is like, that's probably just his Black Ops training, Storm. If there was anything genuinely sinister going on in his head, the professor would be the first to know. Then we cut to a scene where Wolverine is literally slaughtering the X-Men. He's... make sure I didn't skip a page. No, I didn't. He's fighting Cyclops over here, and he's like literally slashing him across his guts. Like that would kill him. And Marvel Girl is saying, Marvel Girl to all available X-Men, Wolverine is murdering Cyclops in the Professor's Arboretum. Someone get down here and help me nail this lunatic. And Wolverine's taking Cyclops' head and twisting it around, forcing him to fire. He's got his little finger on the little button on the side of Cyclops' visor, shooting Jean Grey, blasting her through the chest. That kills her. And then Wolverine takes Cyclops' head and continues it around, snaps it, clearly breaking his neck, just snapping it, killing him dead. Beast shows up. Now, this is a pretty dynamic shot, but I don't think that it works having his right leg and like his foot and his shoe and his lower calf. Like, I get what Adam Kubert's doing. I don't think it works. It's a little weird looking. But Beast shows up, kicks Wolverine right in the face. He says, that healing factor of yours is going to be working overtime tonight. He says, let's see if you can grow yourself another freaking head when I tear this one off. And Wolverine says, wow, Beast's so angry, he almost said a dirty word. And as Beast lands, Wolverine stabs Beast right in the chest, both hands right in the chest, killing him. Says, just shut up and die, dog breath. So Wolverine's standing there. Here comes Iceman, Storm, Colossus. Wolverine cuts Iceman into pieces, slashes Storm to death, slashes Colossus to death. Just murders them all. Wolverine saying, you badly trained morons here were dead the minute you looked me in the eye. The only real question was whether my adamantium claws were tougher than this Russian clown's organic metal shell. But I guess the 8 pints of Rius negative seeping out into the grass answers that, right, Professor? And Professor X is just calmly sitting there petting his cat, kind of like Dr. Evil. He's like, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed on some primitive level, Wolverine. So there's Professor X. There's Wolverine standing amongst the dead, just looking at him. And then, of course, is all like a mind thing. It was just Wolverine tapped into like a holographic projection thing just to see what Wolverine would do. Professor X says, you were only supposed to wrestle with your fellow X-Men in these danger room exercises, not hack them to pieces. And Wolverine's like, sorry, bub, force of habit. So, I get that they're trying to demonstrate that Wolverine's just the most epic badass ever. But we already know that. But he's just slaughtering them, and he doesn't care. So, again, we're already kind of having a Wolverine that we don't like. But, of course, we're going to grow to like him because that's how this shit works. Wolverine says, these virtual simulations you put together are pretty convincing, Beast. You got any over 18 versions? And Beast is laughing it up. He's like, consider yourself at the top of the list from the Brittany and Christina program I've been working on upstairs. So I'm like, this is kind of weird that Beast just thinks Wolverine is awesome, even though he just slaughtered them all when he wasn't supposed to. Beast should be suspicious, but he's like, oh my God, yeah, I've got this holographic program with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera where I'm going to be fucking them all. I'll let you borrow it next time. Professor X is saying, I'm glad you're settling in, Wolverine, but I must admit that you're surprised that you've remained with us this long. Cyclops is saying, yeah, what attracts a maverick with a rep like yours to our quiet little upstate safe house? And then we cut to kind of a roughly drawn scene to indicate that we're looking at a past moment, because Cyclops is saying, what makes you come here? And in Wolverine's head, we see Magneto talking to Wolverine, and Magneto saying, Charles Xavier is our single obstacle, Wolverine. I want you to infiltrate his circle and eliminate him. You're the only one among us who can shield his thoughts and the one man alive I can trust this mission to. So Magneto has sent Wolverine to assassinate Professor X. And when Cyclops is saying, what brings you here? Wolverine just says, the scenery, bub, the scenery. Okay. And again, this is pretentious douchebag version of Wolverine. Like, look at that little stupid chin beard he's got. But yeah, Wolverine, he's the mysterious assassin. This is going to be terrible. Anyway, congratulations, Iceman. You just saved Wolverine from 6 weeks of sucking dinner through a straw. I don't know what all that's supposed to mean. But now that there's a news report. They're like, holy shit, something bad has happened on the news. They're like, the president's daughter has disappeared from where she's living. The Brotherhood of Mutants have claimed responsibility for kidnapping the president's daughter. And so then we get Magneto once again giving a speech. 113 mutants have been murdered by the Sentinels in an effort by your president to halt evolution. But the next mutant kill shall be followed by the execution of his foul-mouthed female calf. This is my one and only warning. I have nothing more to say. And the X-Men are like, well, this is terrible. What the hell are we supposed to do? Professor X says, well, we're going to have to rescue her. What action would you recommend, Cyclops? Yeah, Professor X, ask the 17-year-old child what we should do. Now, again, if these were like grown adults that had some life experience and actual like real world training, but I guess when you train for a year or two with Professor X, you're all military strategists. They're like, well, rescuing the first daughter or whatever they call her means the Sentinels are going to be out there forever. Storm says, I don't like Magneto any more than any of you, but at least he stopped the government from killing mutants. So they talk back and forth like, is Magneto actually doing good? They're not killing mutants, but so they kind of go back and forth, and then they kind of hit up Wolverine. They're like, well, what about you, Wolverine? You're tagging along for our first real fight with the Brotherhood of Mutants. And Wolverine says, well, I kind of had my heart set on playing backgammon with the professor here, but why the heck not? Sounds like it could be a laugh. So now we're in Croatia. And so I guess the X-Men have just flown all the way out here. Well, why are they in Croatia? So they're in hiding. They're kind of secretly running around, flying up in their jet. But then here's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. There's Toad. There's Quicksilver. There's Blob. And then I was kind of wondering, who's this guy in the background over here? But this is Mastermind. Like, oh, shit. So I'm like, oh, God. They're probably going to do the Phoenix storyline really soon because Mastermind is there. And it's not going to carry a fraction of the weight or the drama. But how could it? It's the most epic, brilliant X-Men story ever written. No one could ever beat it. So I honestly don't remember if the Phoenix story works its way into Ultimate X-Men somewhere, and if they do, what happens? I feel like it has to. I can't remember because, like I said, none of these stories were a fraction as memorable as the original. But yeah, we got the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and then there's Scarlet Witch is there. And while they're sitting around, there's the kidnapped president's daughter. They're being observed. That's Beast. He's like, ready when you are, Colossus. So the X-Men are on the job. They're going to do some awesome shit. The ground starts shaking because Colossus is ripping up the structure underneath the building that they're in to shake it loose, to throw them all off. Beast dives in, kicks Toad right in the face. Cyclops is just racing along in his car. And he creates an ice bridge for Beast to slide down and get away. He gets the president's daughter, gets her out of there, dumps her in the car that Cyclops is in, and gets her out of there. So the X-Men pull off like a really quick shock and awe snatch and grab. They get the girl. They scare the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, get the girl up and out and away from the situation as quick as possible. It's pretty well shown. Like, it's a pretty good action beat to show that they're pretty competent for a bunch of 17-year-old kids. But of course, they have Quicksilver on the bad guys team. So he chases after them, and instantly Cyclops' car is missing the key, and Quicksilver is sitting on top of the hood of the car. And again, some of this dialogue, again, it's supposed to be teenagers, so it's supposed to be stupid, I guess. But Quicksilver shut the car off so that he can't get away with the president's daughter. He says, missing an engine, Cyclops. So Cyclops just fucking shoots him, which he should. Boom, blast him. He says, missing a face, moron. So Quicksilver comes, he lands over here, so he's not really hurt. He says, I can't believe you're seriously trying to outrun me, you idiots. I could have your skins hanging from the telephone wires in a blink of an eye. So Quicksilver takes off running, and Wolverine pops out of the corner with his claws out, ready to have Quicksilver just run straight into his claws. And Wolverine just pops out and says the dumbest line. He says, man, that had to be just about the longest pee in history. Quicksilver stops and says, Wolverine, what are you doing here? And Wolverine slashes Quicksilver and says, wouldn't you like to know? So then Toad jumps out of nowhere, smashes Cyclops on the ground. Storm and Iceman are coming along, and Toad just smashes them into the ground. So now we're having a mutant fight, which is the kind of thing that you'd expect. Cyclops is picking his ass up, and Iceman tries to be useful, so he fires a ice beam. I mean, is that what you'd call it? And basically locks up Toad's lower body in a chunk of ice, so he can't jump around. So there he lands on the ground. Storm runs up and kicks him in the face, probably knocking him out. It's like, all right, where's the girl? Where's the president's daughter? What's going on? And Wolverine, he says, well, don't freak out. I've got the girl. I've stolen a cop car, and I'm taking off with the girl. And then Wolverine says to himself, Magneto's going to kill me for this. Because Wolverine's supposed to be undercover, so he has to really go deep undercover, even if that means he's fucking up with Magneto's other plans. Sure. Now, as Wolverine in the stolen cop car, he's like careening through the streets as the Scarlet Witch is like blowing up shit around him. He's trying to get away. Buildings are exploding around him. And then now the Wolverine comes running up towards a cliff. So Cyclops radios Wolverine. He's like, Wolverine, this is Cyclops. What are you doing? And Wolverine floors the car and says, around 120, I hope. And the car ramps off this high cliff. And then, of course, coming in the distance is the B2 Spirit. and they open up this lower bay. I'm like, oh, they're going to do a barn swallow, which is a Firefly reference for any of you who know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's probably the dumbest sounding thing you've ever heard. But here comes the jet. Ramp open, car flying off the bridge, and they catch the car inside the bay. I'm like, this is the biggest B-2 stealth bomber I've ever seen, to have an interior bay that fucking big. It's a comic book, Rob. No one cares. It's a comic book. Just go with it. I was just checking to see if the license plate actually said anything that was relevant, but not that I can tell. Anyway, Wolverine, he got the girl. They're upside down. He's like, well, he says, the Cyclops, I think, is saying, you'd do anything to impress a 17-year-old in a tight sweater, wouldn't you? And Wolverine says, well, actually, I've kind of got my eye on a telepathic 19-year-old, but I'm worried she's going to waste her life waiting on a loser who brushes his teeth 6 times a day. Well, 19, isn't Jean Grey? Didn't they just say she's 17? Whatever. I don't fucking care anymore. Cyclops says, don't ever give up hope, Wolverine. And, or maybe it's actually Jean Grey. She says, don't give up hope, Wolverine. You never know your luck. Anyway, this stupid kind of back and forth. Again, super young kid, old Wolverine, whatever. Cyclops is like, hey, everybody, good work. Like, we stopped the mutants, the evil mutants. We've rescued the president's daughter. We're doing awesome. So, well, now what's going on? What about Magneto? Is he there? What's the next step? Cyclops keeps running around. He's like, this just gets worse by the second. Drop who you're hitting and start running, boys and girls. We did what we were asked to do. Now let's get out of here while we're still packing a pulse, because they're saying that I guess they do see Magneto. He is there, and they're like, they understand that they cannot fight him. And Jean Grey, Jesus, Storm, she's like, we're too late, Cyclops. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And then there's a pile of rubble, and there is Beast. He's buried under this rubble, and Storm says, I think Beast is dead. He's under this pile of rubble, and I was like, well, did I miss? Where did Beast factor in to this whole fight where he got trapped under rubble? I'm probably blasting through it too quickly, and now it makes me want to go back and like, where was Beast? Where was the last time we saw him? He was right here. He dives out, gets the girl in the car, and then he's just hanging out left on the ground while Cyclops takes off with the girl, and we don't see him again. So it was a little bit of like confusion on my part. I'm like, well, what did I miss? I guess this could have just happened anywhere. That's part of the surprise. No one expected it. No one saw it coming. Now, again, I don't remember what happens, but I think, you can correct me, but I have it in my head that Beast maybe does actually die, which would be really weird to kill off what's a main member of the team in issue 3. But I have this little weird thought in the back of my head, because again, I don't remember what happens in future issues. I have to go dig them up. But does Beast die? Or does something happen to his mutation and that's where he becomes the blue furry Beast? He's only the human guy for like 2 issues. I don't know. It is kind of weird that he's just buried under rubble, but the idea is like, is he dead? Now, these are comics, right? No one ever dies, but this is the ultimate line. The idea is like, this could happen and we would never see it coming, because this isn't the Prime universe. They could kill people. This could just be what happens. So maybe it is. I don't know. I actually don't remember. So again, ultimately, Ultimate X-Men, the story is pretty exciting. It moves at a pretty good pace. The action beats are entertaining. They do some cool, rescues and fights, but the X-Men's supposed to have kind of some heart, and the heart is missing, but it's also only 3 issues into it. I get it. We have to build up to it. We have to get to that point. I understand all of that, and so you can't judge it too quickly. But I'm just saying, like, I remember as I read the entire series, just kind of not caring what happens to these characters. I had no emotional connection to any of these guys. So I don't know. I'll dig up the rest of the issues and we'll eventually go through them. I'm going to get into the Ultimates. We're going to get into Ultimate Fantastic Four. We'll do Ultimate Spider-Man eventually. A lot of content to go over because I don't plan on dying anytime soon. And I want to kind of go over all these books as long as I can, as long as I got a channel and anyone gives a shit to watch. So that's all I've got for now. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.